base is unhappy. If Besser would have left, there would have been nothing but love and sadness, right? There's an emotional connection with this player in this fan base and this city. He kind of like he's our guy, right? Drafted, developed, the longest tenured guy, just a model citizen in the dressing room, on the streets, with the fan base. We know his history. He has opened up emotionally about the struggles he's had with his family's history of health problems. So I think it's just like he's a player that the people know and love. And I think it kind of goes the other way too. He did not want to leave. I think he was getting a little anxious and a little nervous. He was ready to test it, and he would have had multiple teams, like upwards of 10 teams offering him the deal. But his heart was in Vancouver, and so he was willing to take, I'm sure he could got 8.5 on the open market, take a little bit less money to stay where he's comfortable and to try to help this team that, there's some loyalty there with him as well.
So, like 2 weeks ago, they didn't want him?
I think that they're well. First off, I think they didn't want to give more than 5 years. That was last year. He wanted term.
Yeah.
I think they realized how difficult this was going to be. They still want a center. They went and got Evander Kane. They needed help in the middle six, right? They got him, and they couldn't figure out a way to get anyone else. Like they tried to get Ross.
So what happened with Dvorak? You mentioned they couldn't outdo 1 times 5.4.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know that they wanted a centerman, and I mean, Dvorak didn't have a great season last year. I don't think that unless Suter is signed, since we've got on this call, I don't think the door is closed on Suter either. I think that if they can move salary, and the names out there are Joshua or Bluger, I think they would like to return him to the fold, because right now, I don't think there's a team in the league that has more question marks with its top 2 centers in Pettersson and Hedl, right? I mean, there's a million questions there. And then your next 2 centers after that, as it stands now, are Ratu and Bluger. I think they would love to bring back Suter and have him as part of that center group for a little more depth. And if they have to lose one of those other players, so be it. So I don't think that's dead, but when you see Mikael Granlund going for $7 million a year, there might be a chance you can't spend the money on Suter.
You're watching and listening to Dan Murphy, host of Hockey Night in Canada, the Canucks on Sportsnet. So Murph, Demko gets the number of a top goaltender in the National Hockey League, but doesn't necessarily get the term, only 3 years. But is it still a huge gamble when you consider where he's been health-wise for the Vancouver Canucks?
I mean, there's always going to be a risk. I mean, 2 seasons ago, he was a Vezina finalist, but only played 1 game in the playoffs. Last year, there was the Poplatias thing to start it. Didn't play until December, had some injuries. All I can say is this. They're confident and comfortable that he's fully healthy now. He's having a full summer of training for the first time in like forever. He's already on the ice, which is earlier than he's ever been on the ice. He's got a new trainer. So they're doing some different things. And the fact that they have Lankinen means they can play them, they can split the games. Mm-hmm. There doesn't have to be a workload that's going to be crazy for Thatcher Demko. They know that Lankinen probably can't play 55, 60, but he can certainly play 40 quality games for you. And if you split the 2, I think that's the ideal scenario. So yes, Demko left some years on the table. The Canucks gave him a little more AAV than they probably would have liked, considering what's happened last year. But again, it's a situation where they're comfortable with it. They think that he can get back to where he was, and they're confident that he will. And I'll say this too, like for all the stories out there that the Canucks, obviously last year was a gong show, or whatever the term you want to say, a tire fire, a dumpster fire, all that, the locker room was crazy. Well, you've got 3 players, 1 in UFA, Besser, and 2 players that were signed on the first possible day they could in Demko and Garland, all Americans, by the way, wanting to stay in Vancouver. So
awesome.
maybe the room isn't quite as bad as we made it out to be, or maybe they feel like that was more blown up than it should have been. I don't know.
I think that's great, Murph, and I think it's a great sign that even when things are imperfect, people still want to be in Vancouver. I think, you add some success and make it, it could be a real destination for guys. I am curious to know how you think they'll be affected by a change in head coach. Rick Tocchet was a pretty impactful, confident voice. Adam Foote, not been an NHL head coach in the past. Chosen over Manny Malhotra. I don't know if you'd put it that directly that he was chosen over him, but what are your thoughts on the coaching situation this year?
Well, I was surprised by how many times the players on their Zoom calls, Besser this morning and Garland yesterday, mentioned how often they'd talked to Adam already. So clearly the lines of communication are open and fully open. I think that Adam's going to want to be his own guy, but I think one of the big reasons why they chose him is this is a team that still needs to win, right? We all know the Quinn Hughes situation. They don't want to take a step back. They want to push and try to get better. Well, the one area that they're fairly sound is in goal and on defense. If you bring in a guy that's going to totally change the system, you might blow up the first month of your season. And if this team started 5-10-2 because they couldn't grasp a new system that a new coach was putting in place, they're in real trouble. So I think that the fact that Foote is probably going to play a similar defensive system was a big key in him getting the job, because they feel that side's okay. It's, can we score enough goals? And I'm sure he'll have his own wrinkles, but I think that they were comfortable that the same style of defensive system that Tocchet ran, I think Foote will probably run, and I think that went into decision-making for Foote getting hired.
So you say still needs to win, which equates to needs to make the playoffs, and you bring Evander Kane in, it ain't to rebuild anything, man. They have to present Vancouver Canuck fans a team that they believe should be one of 16 at the dance next spring.
Yep. And like I said, the questions are huge with Pettersson. You're hoping that, I think it all rests on Pettersson, if I'm being honest, right? He can't be a 50-point guy. He's got to be an 80-point guy. Maybe he's not going to get back to 100. I'm not sure. But I think the main big question rests at the feet of Pettersson. Hedl, if he's healthy, is he a second-line center? Maybe not on a cup team. Maybe he's your third-line center. But for now, they're comfortable going with those two. And if something shakes loose as the season goes on, they'll address it. But I think that they feel like, despite everything that went on last year, we missed the playoffs by 3 points. And it couldn't have gone worse. So let's just pray that we don't have another season where everything that can go wrong goes wrong. What's that, Murphy's Law? And we're going to be okay and make the playoffs. And so I don't think they got worse yesterday, and there weren't a lot of teams that got better yesterday. Montreal maybe. There are a couple teams, Carolina, I think, but not a lot of teams did what they wanted to yesterday. And the Canucks, even though it was unconventional the way they got around to it, they did address a goal-scoring need by bringing back Brock Besser.
Yeah. This is, I don't know. I want to ask you about Quinn Hughes, and everyone talked about a lot of that stuff, the potential for him to eventually leave and go play with his brothers and how real that is. Have we moved into a state where he could be LeBron James and just be like the GM of the Canucks and be like, hey, if you guys want me here, you got to go get this guy, you got to keep this guy? Would he have more of an impact with this looming threat?
I don't think so.
I don't think he'd ever do that. He's too laid back.
I don't think Rutherford kind of gives me that vibe that he's going to let someone dictate. Right. I think they will certainly have conversation with him. Yeah. And I think one thing that, I'm not saying he's going to be here after next year. I don't know. But I think the one thing that might give fans a little more comfort is nobody's leaving. Any team. Free agents stayed. They had a chance, I think, to, make a wackadoodle with this,